Hey everybody, this is James Hernandez. How's everybody doing? Hope you're all doing good and hope you guys had a really good summer and all. And welcome back to a brand new video. And today I'm going to be reviewing another video game, which I haven't really been covering a video game ever since I reviewed the PlayStation 1 Spider-Man game. And today, speaking of Spider-Man, I'm going to be reviewing the sequel to the first game, and that is Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. This is a Spider-Man game that was released in 2001, and it's a sequel to the first one that came a year before. No, actually a year after, sorry. Yeah, this game came out in 2001 after the release of the first game, which was released in 2000. And this is also the Spider-Man game that was developed by Vicarious Visions, rather Neversoft, which was developed from the first one. So let's talk about the story of this game. So it begins with this hooded figure that who is entering the building to steal one of the technological devices, and he was killing all these doctors and nurses by electrocuting them, and it turns out that it was Electro. So Electro was stealing one of those BioNexus devices, so he can actually use his electrical powers to become God, and nobody can stop him. But however, it's all up to Spider-Man to go after him, who not only that Electro has wanting to become a god, but he also has kidnapped the doctor named Dr. Watts, and now Spider-Man has to go rescue her while also stopping Electro from taking over the world. So I first discovered this game when I first played the demo version of this when I had the PlayStation 1 demo disc, and I was really interested to check this out because when I heard there's a sequel to the first game for the PlayStation 1, I thought to myself, oh, they made a sequel to this? Oh, I gotta check this out because the first game for the PlayStation 1 is a classic, and I really think that the first Spider-Man game really holds up, and it is one of my favorite video games ever made, especially when I did my top 20 favorite video games of all time about 3 years ago, when I started YouTube. I did mention these two Spider-Man games, but as I checked out Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, all I had to say is this game is decent, but it does have problems, and I felt like the game is not as good as the first game. And I'm going to explain why I said this. But first, let's talk about what I really like about this game. So let's start with the controls. Now, the controls is literally the same thing like the first game, with the exception of the punches and the kicks. And the punches and the kicks, I think they're okay, but I think they're not as very well balanced as the controls from the first game, because some of the punches and the kicks doesn't really look like Spider-Man was kicking or punching his enemies or even the henchmen. So I just felt some of the controls would just kind of feels well, they're not broken, but it just feels like it's not fixed up. And I think they could have stayed with the same punching and kicking poses from the first game to be added in this game, instead of being oh, I'm gonna punch like this or I'm gonna kick like that. And it just feels really a little off for Spider-Man in this game. But oh well, I guess it is for what it is. And I also wanted to talk really quick about the soundtrack. Now the soundtrack in this game might not be as iconic or as nostalgic as the music from the first game, but there are a few soundtracks in this game I actually really like. First is a theme song from the main menu. Second being is from the first level called Enter the Webhead.
If I press X to jump and then X again while in the air, I can web swing.
And that soundtrack really does give me a lot of chills, where it takes place during the sunset, and then Spider-Man was on the rooftop, and then he meet up with the member of the X-Men named Beast. And Beast and Spider-Man were chatting with each other for a little bit about the tutorial, and then Beast was asking Spider-Man about or these are cartridges are doing like on the rooftops, even though, and then Spider-Man tells Beast that one was for his health and the other one is for like to make, to get more webs. And then Beast also asks Spider-Man, how do you deal with the henchman who is causing trouble? And then Spider-Man usually says, oh, I should press square or circle to punch and kick, and press triangle allows me to shoot my web. And Beast actually finds it very fascinating. So yeah, like I thought the soundtrack for the first level of the game is actually pretty cool, and it really does give me chills. While the rest of the music, I don't think the rest of the music is that bad, obviously, but I do think it's not as like as nostalgic or has a like it just doesn't really hit me as much as the first game, because the first game has like a lot of soundtracks in this game where I was like, oh man, I remember the soundtrack from this game. It really hits me so hard. This game tried, but not as much. But the other soundtrack I also like is the training section where Spider-Man was doing training when he was when he was being trained by two other members of the X-Men named Charles Xavier as well as Rogue. And the music in there is also pretty cool too. And usually all these like training sections that Charles Xavier and Rogue was telling Spider-Man is usually just usually all these like tutorial stuff, like just what when Beast mentioned to Spider-Man that there's like a Mutant Academy thing, which is interesting because this game, along with the X-Men fighting game X-Men Mutant Academy 2, was also released in 2001 for the PlayStation 1, and Spider-Man was also like one of those playable characters in that X-Men fighting game. Yeah, which I actually didn't know that either until like I checked out the gameplay for the X-Men fighting game, and it was really interesting. It was really cool. But anyways, back to this game. So yeah, I think that's about the soundtracks. Now let's talk about the bosses in this game. So there's not a lot of bosses in this game, much like the first one, because the first game has like 7 bosses, whereas this game only has like 5. So the first boss battle in this game is Shocker, and when we see Shocker, he appears like in the warehouse, like after when Spider-Man was asking one of the thugs on what's going on, and then all of a sudden Shocker attacks him with his blasts, and then Spider-Man has to defeat Shocker before the whole warehouse caught on fire and it explodes. So Spider-Man instantly defeats and beats up Shocker, and then that fight was unexpected to see, because it was cool to see Shocker in a video game format, the PlayStation format in Spider-Man, which is interesting because I have seen Shocker in the other Spider-Man games, like the movie tie-in games like Spider-Man 1 and 2 based on the Sam Raimi films. And seeing Shocker in this game just really does remind me of like how I managed to see Shocker in the 90s cartoon. Now the fight with Shocker is actually really hard because of like not only that you can't like get too close to him like that much, because of Shocker would just like attack you really quickly, and he will also like cause like he also like will cause like something like of an earthquake or vibration to make Spider-Man like to fall out of the ceiling. But you have to like throw all the boxes at him, and then you have to like web zip him, and that's where you actually manage to defeat Shocker really good. So yeah, the fight with Shocker was actually pretty cool. It was hard, but I actually do manage to beat him up, before the warehouse exploded. All right, now the second boss battle is Hammerhead. Now Hammerhead, I think, is one of the most underrated Spider-Man villains I have seen, and it was really cool to see him as well. And he usually was trying to charge at Spider-Man with his head. Kind of reminds me of like the Rhino boss battle from the first game. So in order to defeat Hammerhead, you had to like web zip his I think it was his Tommy gun out of his hand, and then you had to like beat him up before he gets the gun, and then he like shoots the bullets at you. And it was like not that hard for me. Obviously, it was actually pretty easy. And then when Hammerhead was defeated, I was like, yeah, get down, you big head. And because he has like a really like square hard head where he's kind of like charges like the Rhino, but we all know that he's not the Rhino, but he's just like an actual thug with a big head, and he has like a Tommy gun. So it was cool to see Hammerhead in the game. I think he's like such an underrated villain that I would have liked to see him in the future Spider-Man game, not game, Spider-Man movie, probably in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I would have liked to see Hammerhead. Now, the third one is the Lizard. Now, the Lizard is one of those characters from the first game that actually did return to the sequel. But unlike the first game, where the Lizard was asking Spider was well not asking like he was telling Spider-Man like how to find Mary Jane, where Venom actually kept her in the sewer in the first game. In this one, Dr. Connors actually was transformed into the Lizard when Spider-Man wants to like check on him to ask him like what does the villains like Hammerhead, Sandman, and Electro wanted with Dr. Watts. And then when Spider-Man enters the doctor's office, he encounters the Lizard, and then the Lizard is like so scary, and he is just like acting like pretty OP. And you had to like throw like one of those human DNA stuff in order to bring Dr. Connors back. So you had to defeat the Lizard, and it was cool. It was really cool to see the Lizard, even though he is really terrifying. Now for the was it the fourth? Yeah, the fourth one is Sandman. Now Sandman is one of those villains I did not even expect to see in a PlayStation Spider-Man game, because the first time I saw Sandman is when he was in Spider-Man 3, where he was played by Thomas Hayden Church. And what's really interesting about Sandman in this game is that he is like one of those villains that didn't actually went to jail after you defeated him, because after when you defeat Sandman, when you like turn on the water pipes and then like the water aims at Sandman, because that's one of Sandman's weaknesses, and he pretty much like just gets away, and then you don't see him again after you defeated him. And Sandman, there were moments like where Sandman, like when he goes like under the sand in the ground, there were some really weird moments where his sound effects when he goes under just doesn't really sound like sand. Obviously, it just kind of sounds like clay. And I was just like, is he really Clayface from Batman, or is this I don't know? It's kind of like Play-Doh. It's so weird, but like the fight with Sandman is also fun. It was really cool to see Sandman in the game, and now we actually got to the final boss, and that is Electro. Now, Electro is like one of the hardest boss battles that I actually have ever been through in this game, because you had to avoid all the lasers that he was summoning, and not just like his his powers of electricity, but also like all the lasers that he was aiming at Spider-Man. You got to be really careful, and it was also kind of pretty frustrating for a Spider-Man game. But I actually did manage to defeat Electro, and then when Electro got the jewel, it actually makes him like super overly powerful, and that's where we got to fight a Hyper Electro, which was like on top of the buildings. Now, while I discuss about the very final battle to fight Hyper Electro, I want to tell you guys that, did you know that in this final battle with Hyper Electro, that fight was supposed to happen at the World Trade Center? Yeah, and you want to know why they edited out? It's because of terrorist attacks during 9/11. And there was also a scene, a cut scene that was cut from the game, that we actually never got to see. And that is after when Spider-Man defeated Electro. It turns out that Thor appears, and he was like chatting with Spider-Man, and that was where the newspaper from the Daily Bugle was giving Thor credit to stop Electro. So Thor was supposed to be in this game, but due to terrorist attacks in 9/11, he couldn't make it. And I thought that sucks, because I thought it would have been really cool to see like Spider-Man like interact with some of the other heroes in this game, because one of my biggest problems with the game is that we don't get to see like the other heroes from the first game return in the sequel. as I was like watching through the cutscenes or playing the game, I was like, why is Spider-Man solo? Like, what happened to his allies? Like, where's Black Cat? Where's Venom? Where's Captain America? Where's Human Torch? Where's the Punisher? Where's Daredevil? Like, where is everybody? Like, are just they're just gone. And and yeah, like I know they have Beast and Professor Charles Xavier and Rogue in the game, but they don't really appear in the cutscenes in the plot of the game. And most of the time that Spider-Man never gets any backup. And he also has like no backup, no support or anything. And he's mostly solo throughout the entire game. And that's like one of my flaws with the game. The other problem I have with this game is that there's another villain in this game that only appears in two cutscenes, but he was not a boss battle and we don't get to see him. And that is Beetle. Yeah, we don't get to see the Beetle. Like the Beetle only appears in two cutscenes. One is where Spider-Man was on the train and he spotted Beetle, and then he was asking him, well, like, what's he doing? And then Beetle was like, "Oh, times changed, Spider-Man. I do what I got to." And then he just like blasts on the train. And then before he left, he was like, "Oh, I'll see you next time, Spider Jerk." And then he was laughing. And then we got to see him for the last time when he was like on Hammerhead's side during the villains meeting, where Electro was planning to use a device to take over the world. So, and that's about it. We don't really see Beetle. We don't get to fight him, and we don't get to. And he was never mentioned ever again. And I was thinking to myself, and I was like, where did he go all of a sudden? Like, did he just like took a vacation, and did he just got away? Like, where did he go exactly? So I thought that was really weird. So, yeah, obviously, I think it would have been really cool if if Beetle actually does appear as a boss battle, not just being like, oh, I'm just here just to be on Hammerhead's side. Oh, I'm not going to be the game's boss, everything. So, yeah, it was kind of disappointing. And then like as for the end of the game, like Spider-Man was like reading a newspaper about like how the Daily Beagle is giving Thor credit when Thor was originally supposed to be in this game, but he couldn't because due to terrorist attacks in 9/11. So Spider-Man was reading a newspaper about like how the Daily Bugle was praising Thor and not Spider-Man for stopping Electro. He was like, "What the? Now what is this all about? Oh, I need a new agent." And then he swings away, and then we got to see the one of the villains in jail, and then Electro was sitting in the corner in jail. He was being such a whiner, and he was like, "Oh, I was so close to take over the world. If it wasn't for Spider-Man, I'll be a god." And then Hammerhead was like, "Oh, will you shut up?" And I was just like, "Yeah, for real. Like, stop acting like a baby." And then, like, right after that, we actually got to see the villains from the first game to appear again, which I actually didn't expect to see. So we got to see Doc Ock, Scorpion, Mysterio, Rhino, and the Jade Syndicate thug from the first game. And it was really cool to see them again. And it really does bring a lot of like nostalgic memories from the first game. So it was cool to see them again. Just to let us know that this is a sequel to the first game, even though there were some things that were kind of missing and they tend to forget things. But other than that, like I'm glad that they showed the villains from the first game, just to show the audience that they're still in jail after the events of the first one. So my overall thoughts about Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. This game is not as good as the first game because the first game has a lot of things going on, like the symbiote invasion, Venom, Carnage, Doc Ock, Monster Ock, who's not even a comic book character, and you got to see the other like heroes who like assist Spider-Man, like Black Cat, Captain America, Human Torch, the Punisher, and Daredevil, and even in this case Venom. So yeah, so I thought the first game is just overall better, but Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro is still a playable game, and I actually really do recommend this game for all Spider-Man fans, especially if you grew up with this game. And if you really love Spider-Man, then this is the game I actually do recommend. However, I actually still think it's better to just stick with the first game because the second game does have a very weak plot. There's like a lot of questions and less answers, obviously. And it was never explained like why the villains want to get together to like for being villains, and then like Electro's like wants to cause trouble and all that stuff. And yeah, and the soundtrack is definitely like not as like as iconic as the soundtrack from the first game. So yeah, but but not to say Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro was a bad game, because I thought the game was good. But I just wish there was like more answers, than I wish there was like more answers, because there's a lot of questions in this game. And I really wish that Spider-Man's allies from the first game returned for the sequel to assist Spider-Man again, and probably help Spider-Man and support him while he was going after Electro. So yeah, that's about it. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro a, what should I give this game? I think I should give this game a 7.1 out of 10. I still like the game. It's not as good as the first one. I still think the first Spider-Man game is better, but I still think this is a very playable game. I just think that the story just feels weak. And if this game was released like maybe earlier in 2001 and not in the middle during the terrorist attacks, then I think we would have like got a lot more stuff going on in this game, especially with the Thor cutscene that never appeared in the game. So overall, folks, that is my review for Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, and I would love to hear from you guys. Have you guys played this game? If so, what did you guys think of it? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Do you think the story could have been better? And what would you like to see the heroes from the first game return in the second game to help Spider-Man while he goes after Electro? And what did you think of the game overall? I would love to hear your thoughts. So comment below and let me know. And also, in case if you guys are new here, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and turn on the notifications when I make future videos. And stay tuned that I'm going to be doing some horror movie review videos, since the spooky season is going to be arriving. So starting this year, the horror movie I'm going to be reviewing after is going to be Scream 2. So I'm going to be reviewing the second Scream movie since I reviewed the first one. So folks, I think that's all I got to say for today, and hope you guys enjoy my review for Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. Hope you guys had a great day, and take good care of yourselves.